to really be scared here.
Johnny.
You're still afraid.
Stop it now. I mean it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to You Rankin with me. I am your host, Chadwick Webb. Over there we have the other co-host, James Hancock. And we have, as always, our beautiful guest, my wife, Kerri Webb. And then another dashing gentleman down there. We have Austin Pezhal.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Somewhat guest, when there's a topic that he really likes.
So dashing, I'm available to do shows almost every night because I'm so dashing
and nice
and definitely not single.
Well, what we're doing today is we are ranking the Of the Dead series of movies. Actually, I need to pull up that list because it's a little bit of a concoction that we have devised here. I said, wouldn't it be fun to do some of the Romero movies? But why stop there? Why not do some, at least one kind of parody and then some remakes and stuff like that? So what we're doing is we are doing this list of starting with Night of the Living Dead onto Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, so the original trilogy. Then we're doing the Night of the Living Dead remake. We're doing Shaun of the Dead, which is a parody kind of bit, but its own thing as well. And then Dawn of the Dead remake, and then the other, I guess, back half trilogy of Land, Diary, and Survival of the Dead, all George Romero. And then Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead we threw in there as well. Another kind of, not parody, but offshoot, I'll say. So that's our thing. It's been a little bit of a while since we did the Saw. I'm getting ranking. I'm getting very excited to do this. We've had this kind of on the table for a pretty long time, and we're finally getting to it. So let's get this one done. How this works is basically we're gonna go around. We've all prepared our own rankings separately, and we're gonna go around. We're going to start with our worst or our weakest, I would say, our least favorite. And then we're going to keep going until we get to our favorite. Since we have a list of, what is this, 10 films?
10 movies.
Then I'll say if it's in your top 3, then we'll do a, wait for it, hold off, punt, I love that one. Please, let's talk about that later. Whatever you want to say. I think Skip Allen said that one time, can we wait on that one? So whatever you want to say, we'll get to it a little bit later if it's in your holy top 3, holy trinity, I guess you could say. So we'll go ahead and start. And as always, we have Kerri doing our great combinations down there with the numbers. She's going to figure out what our combined, You Ranking with Me ranking is at the very end. So that's always fun to see the final list. So without further ado, let's get on to our thing. Do you want to start, James, with your number 10?
Yeah, 10, I had Survival of the Dead.
Okay. Austin?
Survival of the Dead.
All right. Kerri?
Yes.
Survival of the Dead.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and do anything different. I'm also Survival of the Dead. So now that you know the order, if we just start going around, then unless you forget, you could just go on next if we're doing the order. So we could talk about Survival of the Dead. That was pretty quick. James, do you want to start with this discussion on this one?
Yeah, sure. This was, my least favorite of this series. It was interesting enough that it follows the same group of, I think it was National Guardsmen that robbed the group in Diary of the Dead, but I don't think any of the rest of the movie really had enough to keep me interested enough or made me feel like it was better than any other movies in here. I know this was 2009, so I know the early 2000s I know we always talk about these kind of movies where there's always issues with CGI and special effects, and I feel like this one just didn't have enough. I didn't feel like it wasn't as good as in the other movies, and I didn't really like the story that much. There on the island in Delaware, it's the two feuding families almost. I didn't think it was that interesting enough. I didn't really like it that much.
Yeah, no worries. Austin.
Yeah, no, I'm not too far off. I mean, it's got this weird story. It feels like it's something from the 15th century. We got feuding families, and there's a apocalyptic zombie thing going on. Like, what are we doing here? And then there's this other subplot about some of them want to keep the zombies alive, in case there's a cure, and some of them don't. Which they did better in The Walking Dead season 2 with Herschel and the barn. I feel like they did that kind of plot line much better in that TV show, which is essentially the same thing. It's like I don't outright hate any of these movies. I'll say that out, up front. There's not one that I like just think is like an abomination or anything like that. This is just the one I kind of feels the most boring, that doesn't do anything for me, just doesn't have a lot of memorable stuff about it. And yeah, I just don't have any decent characters to latch onto. There's not a lot of memorable kills. It's just kind of there. So I mean, you could do worse as like a horror movie. I've seen way worse horror movies overall, but as far as this series goes, it's the least interesting, and for me just doesn't have really anything going on. Even though, like all these other ones, I own it on Blu-ray, so you know.
I did too.
I've got them all right next to me in order of my ranking. So no, of course I own all of them, but it is what it is. I own everything, so I'm a completionist asshole. So that's what I do.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being a completionist. Kerri, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys have said. There isn't much of a story here, and what's there isn't that interesting. It just did not keep my attention at all. Like, I could barely tell you what happened in this movie.
Yeah, definitely going off of that. I think like feuding families and stuff like that can be interesting, can be done well. But I just feel like this was kind of like there's not much left in the George Romero gas can as far as Dead movies go. Maybe brilliant. We'll find out. Maybe brilliant at the start, and then it just kind of keeps going on and on and on. And we'll find out if the other ones are ranked even higher, like in the later half of his Dead movies. But I feel like at this point, it's just any good ideas that he has are just not well executed. I feel like a lot of some of the effects also kind of seem like they were like phoned in a little bit, like that, just didn't really feel like I was like, ooh, okay, shit. Like some of the effects in the earlier ones, I'm like, wow, all right. That actually still holds up and looks really cool. And I feel like maybe in like the kind of CGI era, it just like doesn't as much hold up. None of the characters were able to really grip me that much. And there's an awful part where they try to get a zombie to bite a horse, and then it does, and then they eat the horse. And I was like, I hate this. I don't like this part at all. So yeah, I don't know but that's just something that I hate in horror movies a lot of the times when they do stuff like that kind of unnecessarily. But yeah, I'm no different. I had this one last too. So we can go on to our 9s now. Austin, would you like to start?
9 is Diary of the Dead.
All right. Might have a pattern going on here.
Yeah,
Kerri.
maybe. We'll see.
Kerri, what is your 9?
I'm sorry. Also, Diary of the Dead.
All right, and that, same here. Diary of the Dead. James.
I might switch it up just a little bit here. I put Army of the Dead.
Okay.
You're not far off. I'll put that out there.
Yeah. But we can go ahead and talk about Diary of the Dead. James doesn't seem like he has it much higher. So, Austin, you want to start with Diary?
Yeah, no, this is one I rewatched a couple of them this week, just ones I hadn't seen in a minute. And it's funny, my memory of it is I was like, every time it came up, it even came up on Tournament Fights recently. We're doing like 2007 movies a couple tournaments ago, and so this one came up, and I was like, oh, I remember thinking it was okay, like when I hadn't seen it since I saw it back in like 2008 or something when I rented it, and I rewatched it again today, and I still don't think it's like a horrible movie. Like for a horror movie, you can do worse. I like found footage movies for the most part. I spearheaded the found footage tournament we did like a year ago. So like I like found footage movies for the most part. It's just the conceit of this one is weird. It's like, oh, we're going to make a movie to get the truth out there. But I'm going to put goofy narration over it. And we're going to like have all these weird edits. And like, it doesn't make any sense like as a movie that they're just like making on the fly. It's just really weird. The conceit of it. As with most found footage movies, it's like, why are you still filming right now? Like, what are we doing? But yeah, I feel like it's just kind of a series of set pieces one after another. It's like, oh, now we're going to do the hospital sequence. Now we're going to do the weird, we run into an Amish guy sequence. Like, what? Okay. Now we're going to go try to fetch the person's parents. Now we're going to run into these National Guard guys that we'll never see again for the rest of the movie. Again, I guess, we saw them in Survival, but it was like, okay, that was weird that those guys just get away with it. Okay, we're just moving on. Now here's a sequence where there's this social commentary about these black guys taking over, but it's like, then we don't do anything with that. We just kind of move on. Like, I feel like it's just a series of half-assed ideas that don't really go anywhere. Again, some of the set pieces are entertaining. I like the Amish set piece. I wish we'd actually seen more of that, of like Samuel, this like deaf Amish guy taking out zombies with his scythe or whatever. I thought that was cool, like for what it was. I wish we'd actually kind of stuck with some of that. But again, just kind of a series of scenes. Not the worst thing ever, but when in comparison to this thing, yeah, I just have it next to the last.
Yeah, definitely. Kerri, what do you think?
Yeah, this one, obviously it's a little better, I think, than Survival, but it's still, I think that you put it pretty well, Austin. The narration is kind of goofy. It kind of like says all these corny things and doesn't.
I rolled my eyes at most of the narration in this movie with the girl. Like, it just was very corny, like for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, the acting isn't the best. There's some cool aspects about it, and I like the idea of like a found footage of the Dead movie. It's something like a little different than what we've seen before of these like specific subset of zombie movies, but it just didn't work for me.
Yeah, I actually agree quite a bit. It's an interesting idea. It's like, if you're going to keep doing these, do something different, and he did. And if you really, really love found footage, maybe you would at least kind of enjoy it. And I did a little bit. I mean, there's a couple of interesting things, that happen. Like, the one scene where I think a woman is going back home and she finds, I think it's her family's like dead or something. They're all zombies, and there's like a little boy just jumps out of nowhere and attacks, and it's like a really cool sequence. And then like Tatiana Maslany is in this for like a hot minute, but it's not for very long. We're more familiar with her as She-Hulk nowadays, but there's a couple interesting things, like, oh, look at that. But other than that, it just doesn't really function as a great movie or even that much of a fun movie to watch. Yeah, that's why I had it at 9 as well. James, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, Diary, I guess I liked the found footage aspect of this enough to put it above Army. Diary's my number 8, so it's not that much farther above Army. So we'll probably talk about that one next anyway, from what it sounds like. But I found it slightly more interesting. Like, I thought the found footage worked enough to like kind of keep me interested. I'll just piggyback on what like folks have said already. Like, there's a few cool scenes here. There's some interesting like enough bits here to make it like something I liked enough. I think also like with all of these of the Dead movies, like being like your classic like stereotypical like zombie like have a zombie feel to it. I think compared to Army, which we'll get into, it was a little bit better in that sense. So I feel like I got like a more like traditional sense of like watching zombies in this one, as opposed to why I put Army of the Dead at number 9 instead. So I'll leave it there for now. This was number 8. I like the found footage part of it, enough of it to keep me interested.
Yeah, no worries. Cool. So now that we talked about Diary, let's move on to our number 8. James already revealed his, but Kerri, what is your 8?
My 8 is Land of the Dead.
All right, my 8 is Army of the Dead. Austin, what is your 8?
My 8 is Army of the Dead.
All right, yeah, so we're all pretty around there. So we've all mentioned Army of the Dead. Now we can discuss that one. Kerri, do you want to start or do you want to go last?
I can start. I actually have this slightly higher than everyone. I have it at 7, which is surprising because
very surprising.
I told Chad, I was like, that's gonna be my last one. It's gonna be my number 10. I hate that movie. But it has some entertainment value to it that I think is worthwhile, at least. Like it kind of makes me laugh. I think it's like a fun, like drunk movie watch along, just because it's so insanely ridiculous. But it just devolves. And I mean, it starts off weird and then it just devolves and like to this point where zombies are like in love and having babies, I think, if I remember correctly. And it's just, it gets really wild. I can't really remember the end, but I remember it being like incredibly unsatisfying. So yeah, I'll pass along. I didn't particularly like this one. Yeah.
Yeah, when you get into Army of the Dead, I feel like this one is like a little more watchable than the other ones that we were just mentioned. Like those kind of felt like they barely had stories. This has a story, whether you like it or not. I don't know. I don't particularly love it. Like even the stuff between Dave Bautista and his daughter in the movie, I think is fine, but it's like nothing that I'm like, wow, that was like, you know. And I like Dave Bautista as an actor quite a bit, so. You know, I feel like this is one of the roles where I'm like, I'm not that invested in their story. I'm not that invested in the, you know, the zombie stuff, like the baby stuff that Kerri was talking about, and you know, just really any of the other people. It's a little weird that they, you know, it felt like where they had to throw in Tig Notaro in there, and you can just like tell that those scenes are not the same, you know, that's edited together like that. And even though I find Tig Notaro very funny and I like her scenes just because she's hilarious. Yeah, I'm trying to think else. I mean, some of the action is really cool. You can tell that there's a good style there, but I ultimately just find, I mean, I feel like a heist zombie movie should be, for me, a little bit more fun than this one was. And also a lot of the humor, like the writing and the humor felt like, oh, okay, this is like the lowest common denominator with the humor is, you know, it's all right. That these jokes are not very good and didn't really hit me. So I don't know. It's all right. I have it at my 8, so it's watchable, but it's my lowest like watchable one, I think. So yeah, James, what do you think about Army of the Dead?
Yeah, this one, I mean, was pretty out there. I didn't like this. I mean, again, like I just said with Diary, like there's still like a traditional kind of like sense of like what zombies are with these like of the dead type films, and not that like zombies haven't been like elaborated on like in the future after like some of these movies were made. Like I'm mainly referencing like the whole like slow walk thing versus like you know when they run at you or something like that. Like this one, I don't know. It was weird to watch a bunch of movies where everyone's like the slow walking, like traditional type zombie, and then I mean, Dave Bautista was practically freaking like MMA fighting one of those things at one point in the basement of that bank in the bottom of the casino. They were leaping up on the tables, practically dodging bullets sometimes. I don't know. That was a little bit out there to me, but again, it's Zack Snyder's style, so like what did I really expect? But I feel like the story was it was weird enough, like that, like they want to steal all the money from the casino before they nuke the place, which fair enough, you want to get money, fine, but like it was weird enough to me. And then like ultimately the main guy, well not the main guy, but the one government person, like just wanted like to cut off the head of that one, like the queen zombie thing, which was kind of another weird kind of like there's like intelligent, smart zombies like in the casino or whatever, but like all like the dumb dumb ones are like walking around the outside of it. I don't know. It wasn't my favorite thing.
Yeah, no worries, Austin.
This movie's overcomplicated for what it needs to be. It's just way overcomplicated. Yeah, like you said, this should be a really easy, fun concept. Okay, there's an area of this Vegas place that's overrun with zombies, but we want to go in there and like heist this thing. That should be more than enough of a concept for like a fun zombie movie. You know, we just got to make our way through this thing, survive somehow, get down there. But no, let's throw in like tribes of zombies and dictator zombies, and we're like, yeah, like zombie babies, and they're all like basically as intelligent as people. So what's the point of them being zombies anyways? I just don't understand like why we needed to make it this complicated and just this convoluted. A lot of the plot points are ripped right out of Aliens, which is personal to me because I love Aliens, especially especially a couple of the final third act things are like right out of Aliens. And yeah, it's just I like Batista enough as an actor. Obviously, I think he's the best wrestler turned actor. as far as acting ability. He's a solid leading man. I think most of the cast is okay. And yeah, there's entertainment value. The opening credits are fun, as Zack Snyder usually is one to do with his credit sequences is good. All the special effects are good. But yeah, it's like we're having these elaborate action sequences with the zombies, fighting them hand to hand. All it's like, what are we doing? Like, should they just be, just there's enough that there's a horde of them out there, and they should just be regular, zombies just kind of walking around. That'd be more than enough of an obstacle. I think it's just way, way too convoluted for what it is. And I'm the Snyder guy. I'm a big Snyder guy. And even in a Snyder ranking, I would put this one kind of near the bottom of a Snyder ranking if it was the same thing.
Yeah. Sounds good. Let's see. All right, so we're moving on to our 7s, I believe. So I'll go ahead and start. My 7 is Land of the Dead.
I also had Land of the Dead. Yep, I had Land of the Dead at 7 also.
All right,
okay.
Awesome.
I have the Night of Living Dead remake at number 7.
Okay, Kerri, you're number 7.
My number 7 was Army of the Dead.
That's right. Okay. Only 2 people said Land, and then 1 person said Night. So let's go on to our 6.
Three people have said Land at this point because it was my number 8.
Gotcha. Okay. Kerri, would you like
top 3, Austin?
No, I haven't said anything in my top 3.
Gotcha. Kerri, would you like to start with Land of the Dead real quick?
Yeah, I can start with this one. I think of the last 3 George Romero of the Dead films. This one is kind of the clear
best
one. Yeah. Definitely the best one. I think there's some great parts to this. The special effects are actually pretty good. John Leguizamo is fun in this. Like seeing him as kind of like, this character that's kind of crossing lines, and the Mentalist is in it, which I just could only see him as the Mentalist. For some reason, that kind of took me out of the movie a little bit. But yeah, it has a pretty good story. So this one was actually pretty watchable. I just put it slightly under Army of the Dead because as much as I don't really care for Army of the Dead, I think it's kind of a little bit more fun. But James, what do you think?
Yeah, Land of the Dead. This one was all right. I remember specifically watching this with one of my best friends. The first time we kind of picked this one to watch, we found it pretty weird because I hadn't seen the other 2 or the other 2 in the series, so I didn't know what to expect necessarily. So when I see a leader zombie leading a group of zombies underwater to go and infiltrate it's called Fiddler's Green, I think it's the name of the fortress or whatever. That was weird to me, so I didn't really like it at the time. But when I watched it again, it actually wasn't that bad. I like Dennis Hopper. I think he does a good job. Even if the movies he's in maybe aren't that great, I do like watching Dennis Hopper. The concept was interesting enough with everyone kind of getting accustomed to not having to deal with the zombies. They have the truck, the Dead Reckoning, whatever kind of truck thing they can survive out in the wild and with the zombies. They can use that to help survive when they're out there. You do get, if you watch close enough, if you see any tidbits about the movie, they did put Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright play the 2 zombies in the photo booth zombie area. So that's kind of a quick catch in that movie, but I kind of like that enough. So I think this one just had enough extra in it. I know Tom Savini plays the Blade zombie or whatever that thing is. So I think there's just enough interesting things separately going on that make it a little bit better than the other ones in Army of the Dead 2. This was number 7. It's good. I like it, but I think the other ones above the list are just that much better.
Yeah, and I'll go real quick. Yeah, I agree. I think this one is, of the George Romero Dead films, this one is, I think, good, but it's just not masterpiece level like maybe some of the other ones are. That I like a lot. And this one, I enjoyed more as it kept going, and I kept getting into the different stories they were telling. Dennis Hopper just plays a really good villain. He's silly as a villain in Super Mario Brothers, but then when you get into what was it, Blue Velvet, He's
Oh my god,
insane.
weird dude. It's great though.
We'll have to do a Lynch ranking at some point, and
He's
so
awesome
we can
in that
talk
movie.
more about his performance of Blue Velvet. But he's a monster in that movie, like one of the best like villain performances ever. So yeah, he plays a good villain. He does that here as well. And I normally don't like John Leguizamo as an actor. Recently, he's been doing a lot more like interesting stuff and actually like doing a great job. But otherwise, like he annoys me in Moulin Rouge and stuff like that. Even in kind of like the Ice Age movies. So I just have always like not really been a huge fan of his. But then recently, he's been doing much better for me. But then seeing him in this movie and seeing like his story and stuff like that felt like really cool. So I really like that. I'm actually trying to pull some more stuff. It's been a little bit since we watched it, but yeah, I like the concept of them going around in this kind of like tank machine and just marauding or whatever it's called, looting and stuff like that. And then you have like these zombies that are a little bit more intelligent. Like we'll talk about Bub and stuff and Day of the Dead, but you have a little bit more advanced here where you can kind of see that like they're kind of smart. And going back to the very beginning of this, when they were ghouls or whatever, they maybe weren't as smart, and then now you can see like there's actual something going on upstairs. So it's kind of cool to see that evolution of what we think of a Romero zombie. And yeah, there just feels like there's more story going on in this, character development and all that, but just not at like such a high level that I'm like, I want to immediately throw this one back on and watch it again like some of the other ones. So, Austin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not far off. I have it at 6. So, I mean, I'm not that far from you guys. I definitely think it's easily the best of the back half trilogy, for sure. If anybody knows the story of this, basically what it was is the zombie craze was starting to come back in the early 2000s. As we all know, 28 Days Later hit it pretty big. The Dawn of the Dead remake hit big. And then so people at Universal were like, hey, George Romero, you want to make another of the Dead movie? And we'll give you more money this time to actually make like a big budget movie, because he never really made like a huge budget movie. So they gave him, again, relatively modest in taste, but he gave him like about $17 million. So, but he had money to play with this time and actually do some more elaborate set pieces, do some bigger, concept things, make it more of like a blockbuster type movie. And I think it's interesting. Yeah. Is it a perfect zombie or anything like that? No, but again, he expands on a few concepts that he played around with in his earlier movies. He's always played around with the fact that these zombies might have like memories from their human, careers and whatnot, a little bit of their personality still in there. He's played with the smarter things like Bub and Day of the Dead. So he's always kind of played with these concepts. So it's just him kind of fulfilling some of those with the Big Daddy character and whatnot. But yeah, it's still I think it's still fun. I like a lot of the set pieces. I like the concept of Dennis Hopper's, tower. Yeah, somebody is typing really, really loud into the microphone. Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, it's I still think it's fun. I like the Big Daddy concept. Like, it's just the one kind of leading the other one, so it's not like they're all turning super smart. He's just kind of the one that's sort of evolved a little bit, and that's good. I like John Leguizamo as an actor, so I don't mind his plight. I don't like that they kind of make him a villain. I kind of sympathize with this thing. He's been working for this guy for a while. He just wants to get paid and buy a place, buy a little apartment, and Dennis Hopper's a dick to him, so screw him. I'm with Leguizamo. He's like, screw you. I'm gonna go kill this guy. Like, they kind of play it like he's a villain, but like, no, I'm with him. Like, go fleece that dude for millions of dollars, under threat of violence. I'm with it. So, yeah, some good concepts. I like the kind of area where they play around with the zombies, like you said, with the photo shoot, with the gladiator battles and all that kind of stuff. Like, I like all the little set pieces they do there. So I think there's some fun stuff in this movie, and it's pretty rewatchable. So yeah, I again, everything from 7 up on my list is all like positive movies, just the level of positivity, that I go for each of them. So I just want to make that clear before we go forward. I like all those movies going forward.
It's actually, that's kind of the same for me. I like 7 of these quite a bit, to differing levels.
Right, yeah, for sure.
All right, so now we can get on to our 6s. I'll just start real quick. My 6 is the Night of the Living Dead remake. James, what is your 6?
That is also my number 6 is Night of the Living Dead remake.
Awesome.
My 6 was Land.
Right, Kerri.
My 6 was the Night of the Living Dead remake.
There we go. And I had it at 7, so we're not that far off. So there we go.
This might be our least variable.
Yeah, maybe. This might be pretty close. Well, I think when we get to the top 3 or so, it may change. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens when we get there. But I think we all have very similar bottom halves from what we're going to tell.
Absolutely. And it's actually really hard to rank the better ones. It's easier to rank the ones you don't
right.
like.
No, yeah.
The better ones, you're like, I love all of these for different reasons. Okay. But yeah, I'll go ahead and start with this one. Night of the Living Dead remake was very interesting. I went into it thinking it was going to be more of a kind of like what Gus Van Sant did with Psycho, which I still haven't seen that shot for shot remake, or like the, I know Austin, cover your ears. What is it? Funny Games remake, where it's shot for shot. But this one felt like they actually kind of updated it a little bit, where it's not, I mean, it follows the same story, but there's differences. Like, Barbara's actually kind of has agency and is kind of badass in the movie. Tony Todd is really cool in the movie. I like him quite a bit. And this was pre-Candyman?
Yeah, this is pre-Candyman by 2 years, actually.
Yeah.
So he'd been a working character actor, but he hadn't really broken out yet as like a kind of a recognizable dude. So yeah, a lot of people don't realize this is pre-Candyman. Yeah, by 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this was directed by
Tom Savini.
Who was, who did a lot of the makeup for the earlier ones and was in Dawn and stuff like that. But yeah, I enjoyed this one. I was sitting there like, look, this is produced by George Romero, directed by Tom Savini. It has a lot of like veteran horror people in it, and the makeup and effects look really good and stuff. So I was like, if you're gonna remake Night of the Living Dead, I think this is the best possible way you can do it, and it makes it enjoyable and kind of for its own time. Where the original Night of the Living Dead feels very 60s, very of its day. And then this one feels very 90s, very, women are actually doing things now and not just cowering in the corner and stuff like that. And I feel like they go a little bit further with like showing people like, really desecrating like bodies and stuff like that in this one, where it feels a little bit more like of a question where you're like, should people be doing this? Like, we still don't even really know much about like zombies and whatnot at this point in time, because it's very early on in the zombie apocalypse. So it raises some like moral questions, just like the original movies did. So this is a good remake. I like this movie. I don't know if I would necessarily put it on over the original, but if I'm down to watch like a remake or something one day, I'll probably throw this one on and not be mad about it, because I enjoyed it. James, what do you think about the Night of the Living Dead remake?
Yeah, I liked this as a remake itself. I think it worked really well for the 90s. I liked how it wasn't like a 100% like frame for frame reshoot, but it felt, like you said, Chad, like enough like the original, where they kept enough of it, true to form. I like the ending of it. I think the acting was all done really well. I put this one at number 6, maybe a little above A Land of the Dead. There might be a little bias here, but I had to give my boy Tony Todd some points. I do like him a lot as an actor, so he gets a little bit of a higher spot on this list than the other ones. But overall, I think it's a really good remake, and I enjoyed watching it.
Perfect. Austin.
Yeah, again, I think this movie's solid. Like, I have it at number 7, but I'm positive on all the movies pretty much from 7 on. Like, I think it's a decent, solid remake that got a lot of unnecessary hate for a while. A lot of bad reviews out there for this one for I think no reason. But I think it's kind of been reevaluated over the last 10 years or so, especially by the horror community. And yeah, while it's not quite up to par with the original, I still think it's a decent update for what it is. I know it was really just a little behind the scenes. It was more of a thing to try to get Romero back some of his money that he lost on the original one because of the public domain error. So he doesn't make any money off the original one, but he can make, as a producer, he can make a little money off of this one, and which is perfectly fine. But again, I think they at least went to effort to get, like I said, veteran horror actors like throughout the whole thing that know what they're doing, that know the genre. Tony Todd, I think, is a kind of a perfect update for the Dwayne Jones role. Like he's got the size on him, he's got the presence, he's got the gravitas. He really carries the movie. Tom Towell's the guy who plays Cooper, the asshole in the cellar. He went on to be in like a lot of Rob Zombie movies. Like he's the deputy in House of a Thousand Corpses, and he's in he's in a bunch of his movies. And then you have Bill Moseley at the beginning playing the brother. Who obviously would go on to play Otis in House of a Thousand and all that. There's still some good set pieces. They do change a little bit of the stuff. I think it's a little weird that Barbara goes from being like totally freaked out, scared to do anything, to like 30 minutes later, she's perfectly shooting rifles at everybody and like a perfect badass. It kind of comes out of nowhere and isn't really like set up at all. Like when she's a screaming mess in the first 20 minutes of the movie, and then she all of a sudden just turns her badass mode on. Like, I think it's a little out of nowhere, just to like, oh, well, she just kind of has to be one. But so that's a little wonky, and I don't like what they do to the ending as far as changing the ending a little bit. I think it kind of loses its balls a little bit. I think the ending to the original one was a little more ballsy for what it does. So I mean, they changed the way that Ben goes out and all that kind of stuff, and it showed a little more of the good old boy aspect, which I'm not opposed to. I mean, I'm pretty certain if some zombie thing did break out, we would absolutely see mobs of good old boy hillbilly rednecks driving around a pickup truck shooting them with shotguns. Like, I'm absolutely convinced that would happen, especially in North Carolina where I live. That would absolutely happen. I still think it's a solid movie with good acting, and it flies by. I mean, the movie's 90 minutes and almost plays out almost in real time. Like, it's just kind of we just go and till the end. So I still think it's an entertaining little horror movie.
Yeah, I agree. Kerri, what are your thoughts on this one?
I think like everyone said, this is like a pretty decent movie. Tony Todd is really good in it. I like that Barbara in this movie has, a little bit more to do, although it is a little unrealistic how majorly her character shifts pretty quickly. I don't, part of it I think is that holds me back on liking this movie more is that I just love the original so much more, and I love all the beats that the original hits. It's a little bit more subtle, I think, but overall I like this remake a lot more than I thought I would going into it.
I think most people do when they go back and watch it, or at least see it for the first time. I think some of them have kind of those preconceived notions, and they watch it and they're like, oh, this isn't bad. Like, it's all right. Yeah, it's not like a horrible movie or anything, because it infamously got trashed. And I'm sorry, Chad, I'm not trying to stop it. Roger Ebert gave it like 1 out of 4. Like the guy from the San Francisco Chronicle gave it like a D. Like all the major reviews like trashed it. But I was like, most of them don't like horror movies anyways. But it's like, give it a chance. At least in the horror community, I usually have a pulse on how the horror community kind of feels about the movie. They've reevaluated over the years and been like, hey, look, it's not the original, but like, very few movies are, and it's decent on its own. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people go into remakes very trepidatious, like, okay, why? And I feel like this one mostly earns it. So, and like you said, it's just very enjoyable on its own. So, if you want to watch a remake, this is not a bad one to check out. I agree. So now we can move on to our 5s.
Okay.
We're almost there. And I don't know, Austin, what's your 5?
My number 5 is Shaun of the Dead.
All right. Kerri,
Wait
what's
for
your
that
5?
one.
Yeah, that's also wait for it.
I figured it would be. Yeah.
My number 5 is the Dawn of the Dead remake.
All right, that is also
punt that for me. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That's also my number 5. James, what is your 5?
The 2004 Dawn of the Dead.
Oh wow, punt that.
Right, well, we're punting it, so we'll wait. But now we can go on to our number 4. Kerri, what is your 4?
My 4 is Day of the Dead.
That's also my number 4.
Put that into my top 3. Yeah.
We're almost at the top 3s. James.
Yeah, right.
I had Day of the Dead at number 4.
All right, so now it's going to start getting interesting. Yeah, fuck that.
Austin, what is your 4?
My number 4 is Night of the Living Dead.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, wait for it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now we're at 3s, so we could just go around and do the 3s real quick, and then we can talk about the other ones that were punted a little bit. My 3, and this is one that's risen a lot for me since I first saw it and I rewatched it, is Dawn of the Dead. Is my number 3. James, what is your 3?
I had Night of the Living Dead at number 3, the OG.
Perfect. Austin.
My number 3 is Day of the Dead.
Okay. Kerri.
My number 3 is Dawn of the Dead, the original.
All right. So since we're at 3s, Austin punted the Day of the Dead, and he just revealed it as his 3. So I think we should discuss Day of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Austin, would you like to start that one?
Yeah. No, this is one that it's interesting. It's kind of like I have a couple of horror movies like this. Texas Chainsaw 2 is like this. Their House of Thousand Corpses was like this. Ones that I initially didn't like very much, but as I keep rewatching them have gone way, way up in my book. And maybe it's because as I become a more cynical adult, I vibe with the darker tone of some of these movies. Because Day of the Dead is a very bleak movie. But I think it's also an excellent representation of the psyche of human beings and what they will do in desperate and hopeless situations. Because it's a very kind of hope-free movie of these people just kind of stuck in this bunker. They're starting to lose it. They're doing anything they can to kind of entertain themselves and keep their sanity. They're getting to the point where they're getting sloppy, with their disposal, of the zombies down in the mines and whatnot. But I just think there's some great concepts here that have aged really well about, what it means to kind of just survive a situation. There's a great dynamic between these scientists and military guys as far as the strategies of moving forward. You get little glimpses of, how hopeless it's become on the top of the world. And the stuff with Bub is really good. Them kind of doing the little experiments on not making him too smart, just, trying to get him to do nursery things, put the block in the right hole, recognize music, little things. They're not making him like overly smart, kind of like the Big Daddy character in Land of the Dead. It's just like, a few things here and there, to where he's learning basic concepts and whatnot. All those scenes are a lot of fun. And I just think, man, the practical effects in this movie, the practical gore effects and the kills and whatnot, I think are maybe even almost 40 years later, some of the greatest that have ever been put to screen. That last 20, 30 minutes when all hell breaks loose and people are getting like ripped apart piece by piece, and the gore of like the one guy who gets put on like the crate and they rip him apart is absolutely shocking and stunning to this day. Where you're just like, I don't know how the hell they did all that. The captain who gets ripped apart in the hallway, he's a great asshole, by the way, a great villain character as well. I forget the guy's name off the top of my head, but the captain, the military guy, he's great. I just think this movie has aged really well, and I think more people who go back to it will kind of have recognized the psychological concepts of this movie. And the movie kind of just gets better and better every time I watch it. So it's just gone up in my estimation every time I've seen it. So it's my number 3.
Yeah, not a bad take at all. Kerri, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if we hadn't actually done a rewatch for this of the original trilogy, this would maybe be my number 3 instead of my number 4. But just on this rewatch, Dawn of the Dead slightly edged out this movie for me into my top 3. But honestly, I think on any given like rewatch cycle, I could like resort this as like my number 3 or my number 2, or I guess of the original trilogy, like my number 3 or 2. It's awesome. The special effects are just, they're insane.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
And the story is fantastic. Like the thing I love about this original trilogy are the stories are like fairly simple, but they kind of they're great metaphors and representations of larger issues in society. And I don't know, they're easy watches, like story wise, but they're very compelling. And I think they provide just like a great backdrop for the zombie action that you're there to really see.
Yeah, I'm actually right there with Kerri. Is that, my top four, like I love all four of them. And this one, I don't know. It's just like two of the other ones, as I haven't said them in my ranking yet. Two of the other ones are ranked a little bit higher, but this one is still incredible. Like I can't even say like it's my number four because it's not as good. It's just as good, I think. As I think that original Dead trilogy is just fantastic because all of them work in just different ways, and this one is really incredible. I love Bub on my shirt. I love just what Austin says. Not like too smart, but he's one that I was like, please don't kill this character. I've never felt that way for any other zombie in the franchise, even the later one. So that one, I'm like, yeah, I care about a lot of the characters, and then the ones that are hateable, and they get their comeuppance. It just feels like the writing's really good. I love the they do it in this one. No, I think it's Dawn that does it. I was thinking about the no, in this one too. The very beginning, they the gorillas they sample the beginning of Day of the Dead, which I think is really cool. So a little bit of a tie-in from their music. And what else am I trying to say? I love a lot about this movie. I'm just trying to like piece it all together in my head. I like the idea of what they do with the mad scientist guy who not creates Bub, but trains Bub, basically. Like he's trying his best to be like, can we do something with this? What can we study this? Can we make them, smarter? Can we train them to do tasks for us or whatever? But then you get to like slowly see like, that he's actually like doing like really problematic stuff. And you're just like, oh, like you're like keeping things alive and kind of poking at them, and it just getting
like the one half body one that's just alive just to be alive, so he can poke and prod at it all the time. Yeah, for like no reason. Yeah,
and that just like is very unsettling and creepy. So yeah, it's a legit horror movie, and I really, really like it a lot. I like the setting. It just feels like just so walled in. Like you kind of feel that way in the mall, but then there's ways to escape. But in here, it's like you really you're so walled in. It's just so isolated and just, claustrophobic in a way. And the dynamics between the military and the other citizens and, this little infighting thing and stuff, I think is just really incredible. So I really, really liked this one the first time I watched it. And yeah, just a slight reevaluation of one other movie made this my number four, but other than that, I love it so much. Jane, what do you think about Day of the Dead?
Yeah, this is a great zombie movie overall. This was one of the ones I'd seen the first time doing watching all of these, and like off the bat, like when I kind of like heard about it or like looked at the synopsis, I thought like this is gonna be like kind of dumb, like the zombies holding the gun, like it wasn't like what you'd expect when they're just kind of like dumb, just kind of walking about creatures. But I think the way that they like elaborate on that concept, like you guys have said, like it's not like they're making them like jump through hoops and do like geometry and shit like that. It's just or like trigonometry or shit like that. It's just the shapes, it's music, it's a book here and there. Like it's just enough to like show that they could be more than like what they think they are. I mean, I didn't like any of the soldier characters, but that was the point. Like they're just at their breaking point almost. They're trying to study this, or they're helping the scientists study this, but they're fed up with it. They hate having to, herd the zombies and grab them. They're just fed up with everything, and they're all kind of assholes. But it's what you expect of it. You kind of just aren't technically really supposed to like any of them necessarily. I did like I like on your shirt, Chad, the little, like, extra salute he gives him at the very end. Like, it's so fitting. Like, for even, like, he can, like the zombie, like, picks up that he realized that's the guy who, like, killed, his scientist friends who we came to kind of have a little bit of a bond with. Like, you do see some of that, and I think it plays out a lot better in this movie than I thought it would. I ended up liking this a lot more than I thought I would, and there's just a few others that I liked a little bit more about it. And if you don't like that I put this in number 4, you can choke on it. Which is it's a fantastic line for that character.
Oh, yeah.
He knows he's at his end. He knows he's an asshole. He knows he's facing down the zombies. He's got nothing left. Just choke on it. That was great. That was a fantastic line in that movie for that guy. It was great overall. But yeah, fantastic movie. Loved it. There's a few I liked a little more.
Yeah. I just wanted to add real quick. I do really love the performance from the guy who plays Bub, because like just the way he like picks up the gun, he doesn't really understand it, but he's just kind of holding it, and the way he walks with the gun, is half holding it a little bit, and then but he knows how to fire it when it comes time. And the whole time I was like, please don't kill that character, but they did not, which makes the movie better, I think. But yeah, so we can go on to. Is there another one we could talk about, Kerri, right now?
No, if we want a majority first, then no.
Okay. So then we can talk about our 2s, correct? Mm-hmm. James, what is your 2?
I had Shaun of the Dead at number 2.
All right. Austin, 2.
Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, number 2.
Nice. Kerri, 2.
My number 2 is Night of the Living Dead.
Kerri, do we have the same number 1? Because my number 2 is Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Original.
Chad, right. I think our ranking is like one. There's like one difference.
One off. Yeah, I think it's Army of the Dead.
Yeah.
Something else.
We have Army and Land switched.
Wow, very interesting. Okay.
I think I have the most different one, but even then, the back half is for all of us is almost exactly the same. Yeah. Honestly, I just have a different top 5, like in a vastly different order than most of y'all do. Yeah.
Which is very interesting. We love to see that. I thought that I would be the only one with my number 1, but that's okay because I think that's great. But yeah, we can go ahead and talk about something, Kerri, or should we
Dawn of the Dead remake and then Night of the Living Dead.
All right, Dawn of the Dead remake. Austin, you start.
Yeah, no, this is my number 2. I just think this is a hell of a popcorn movie, man. This thing just moves. I mentioned earlier I'm a Snyder guy. I still think this is one of Snyder's best movies. And it may be because he's also working with James Gunn, who did the screenplay for this movie as well. So again, it's a really kind of smart movie. We just get right into it pretty quickly. Some of the greatest like opening 10-15 minutes I think ever in a movie. You start with a little bit of character stuff with Sarah Polley at the the hospital a little bit. You hear about some stuff in the background if you're paying attention. We go home and then boom, we wake up and shit just hits the fan and we are off to the races. And I think it's a great example of how quickly people can panic, especially when she just opens the door and you see this neighborhood and everybody, it's just complete like chaos mode. And I love it. And we don't let up for the rest of it. Again, it does what I think a good remake should do, which is keep the same general concept of the original one, but do something original with it. Which, you still get a basic thing of a group of people, in this mall kind of holing up, doing anything they can to both survive and kind of, keep themselves occupied. I think the only just slightly difference I like a little bit with the original one as opposed to this one is I like the original one focuses on a smaller group of characters. I do think that like once the other group shows up in this remake, it gets a little like you have a few too many characters running around where we don't get to focus in a lot. When they first get there and it's just this group of 4 or 5 or whatever it is, plus the security guards. I'm like, that's enough. That's kind of really all the characters we need. And then we truckload in, 10 more people. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if I needed 10 more people in this movie, but it's still all right, because we get some fun montages and whatnot. But again, some really good little subplots. I love the stuff with them and Andy, the gun store guy, like the back and forth with the whiteboards, like all that's fun. The way they kind of communicate and do their thing. Some really good kills and special effects. I didn't mind that they kind of switched it to them being at least fast moving for this thing, for what they do. And then who doesn't love the armored up shuttle buses at the end? Like, that's fun when they armor up and get out of there. But yeah, I just think this movie moves and is supremely entertaining and just a really, really rewatchable movie. And yeah, both this and my number one are two of my top 30 or 40 favorite horror movies of all time. I just think I could watch this movie, once a year, and I'd be totally cool with that. I think this one's a lot of fun. So it just moves. I like it.
Kerri, what do you think?
Yeah, this one I wind up liking it each time I rewatch it. Like, it really has gone from a movie I did not really care for at all to what was it? It was my number 5 in this ranking, but only because I love the 4 above it so much. I agree with what you said, Austin. This, like, one of the things that makes this a fantastic remake is it just keeps the same general concept without having the same characters. It's not shot for shot. And for me, it really is like the Night of the Living Dead remake. It's impossible not to compare it, I think, to the original, just because the plot is so similar for so much of the movie. This, honestly, I just view it as they both are zombie movies that take place in the mall, and they're called Dawn of the Dead. And it's less of a comparison, and I feel like that kind of frees it up to be really its own movie. Yeah, the special effects are fantastic. Like, there's so many cool, like, original concepts. Like you said, Austin, that whole opening sequence and the lead into the credits and the credits themselves, they're just really awesome. Even the end bit credits, is still really fun to watch. So yeah, this is one that I keep liking more and more every time I watch it.
And then you get a great little cameo from Ken Foree as the televangelist on the TV.
Yeah,
and I love his little speech. Of course he's a kooky, religious guy, but the way he delivers it is so good that he almost, even the guy who's watching it, who you can tell is not religious, is kind of like, is he right? Does he have a point? Because when he gets, because you did this, you have babies out of wedlock, you kill unborn children, you have man on man relations. He goes into his delivery so perfect, and then he delivers the same line as the original. Obviously, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. And there's some great music behind it. I think this movie's better made than people that are not Snyder fans give it credit for. That dude can make movies and good movies at that. And I think it's a great example of it.
Yeah, I usually actually don't care for a lot. Like, Zack Snyder is just, I don't care for his style.
No, I think you're either a Snyder person or you're not. I just am. Yeah. So, and but I totally get why people aren't. I'm fine with that. But it's funny, even non-Snyder fans kind of look at this movie and go, yeah, but this movie's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because Kerri used to be she used to hate this movie so much. Time I would say, let's watch Dawn of the Dead 2004. She would go, what? Why? Kind of a deal. And then now she's talking positively about it. So that's interesting. I like that she's kind of come around on it a little bit. But yeah, me as well. I saw it for the first time not that long ago. I liked it. And then I've since pause real quick. Kerri, if you're going to do a lot of work, can you just mute?
I'm so sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so I've actually also come around to this. I used to not really love it, and I still wouldn't even say that I love this one. I think it's a little bit on the same wavelength as Night and Land, the remake and Land, where I think it's slightly better than those because it is its own thing. I do think it's aided by Snyder's direction, and so especially James Gunn's writing. I think they made a really good team on this, and I'm 100% more slow zombies over fast zombies, but I feel like it works here. I don't feel like they're trying to make a point of fast zombies are better or anything. They're just that's just the style of the movie, and I feel like it really works, especially the beginning is very scary. And stuff. And yeah, I think Kerri actually made a really good point where, she was it just feels like another zombie movie in a mall, but in a good way. and it doesn't feel like they're really trying to remake Dawn of the Dead. But if they are, they're trying to remake it, not just like, here's Dawn of the Dead again. And I really like that. Yeah, I think they do a lot of really good stuff with the rooftop scenes and stuff like that. Phil Dunphy from Modern Family, he's something else in the movie. A very different character from
Well, you got Max Headroom in this movie.
Yeah. And yeah, so there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. I feel like it can be a movie that you want to roll your eyes at, especially if you don't like Zack Snyder. I also feel like, on the other hand, there's a lot of people who go, that the movie's better than the original, and I'm just like, no, but I'm glad you like it. It's one of those things. I feel like there's a lot of people who are like that as well, where they're like, this one, like, is way better than a lot of the older ones. And I'm like, yeah, you need to have a little bit of a classic appreciation, I think. But I do think for a newer movie, this one definitely holds up and is definitely really rewatchable. And I can tell why Austin likes to watch it so much. James, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, the Dawn of the Dead remake is just fantastic overall from start to finish. It's weird that it's far down as number 5 on my list, but the other ones, I think there's just a little more like meat on the bones as far as like the overall like story and plot goes. But I have a great time watching this every time I do. If I was gonna plug any movie here as like one of my like most rewatchable movies of this list, it's definitely Dawn of the Dead. It's fun, like Austin said, it's fast paced. Zombified girl busts in the bedroom in the morning, bites the dad. Mom breaks out a bathroom window, and that's it. Like, it just goes off the rails from there. For being mid-2000s, it's got great special effects. Like, the gore is great, the kills are great. Yeah, the chainsaws are awesome. The barbed wired up buses in the end are great. I love the bit with on the rooftop where they're vaguely describing celebrity lookalike zombies.
Jay Leno, get Jay Leno.
And the guy shooting them from the gun store roof.
Yeah.
They're also playing like board games and stuff up there.
Yeah. Playing chess, giving out chess commands, and it is a really fantastic movie overall. And I honestly love the end of it too, because like, what better way to end it than like, oh yay, we made it off the mainland, we got to the boat, we're going to this island, it's Providence, we're all saved, and what do you get? Nope, zombies. Sorry guys, dead, done. Like, you could maybe see it's like a cop-out way to finish it, but I feel like for the pace of the movie and like what you have like grown to expect with it, I think it's a pretty fitting ending overall to it. This is a great movie. I like some of the OGs a little more. That's all.
Absolutely.
Anybody that says that, I'm like, go watch the original trilogy and see if it's a downer ending, because that's kind of a trend with a lot of these movies. So yeah, it's not far off.
I think the original Dawn has a pretty uplifting
to a degree, but it's not like it's a definitive thing. It's like, they're not exactly leaving on a high note. You know what I mean? Or like on a positive note.
All right, Kerri, what are we on to next? We got Night and Dawn and Sean.
We can cover Night of the Living Dead now.
Night of the Living Dead. All right. Do you want to start with that one, Kerri?
Yeah, I can start with this one. This is my number 2. And yeah, I think Chad said it's like my top 4. I just love equally, and it's just a matter of what I slightly prefer. I think this is just like an absolutely perfect movie. I don't know what it is about it, but just it's almost like a comfort movie at this point. Like, just the black and white, the characters. The zombies aren't like particularly, like, the special effects aren't what they are in the later movies that we've been talking about. But they're almost so simple. It's like kind of realistic, because they do genuinely just kind of look like freshly dead people that are walking around. And there's some fun zombie moments in there as well. I don't know I don't know how to explain it, but this one, it's just a classic. I love watching it whenever we throw it on.
Yeah, I agree. I think this one is definitely an easy classic. I mean, they're coming to get you, Barbara. A line is a classic. It's just like a super early horror movie that everything it does is just so influential. Not of its time. I feel like it's kind of timeless. Like you could watch it even now and still get really creeped out just by what you're seeing on screen. And it's like nothing's really explained overly or anything like that. You're just seeing the events unfold. And I like the aesthetic. Like, I think, we'll talk about we already kind of talked about like Tom Savini's like makeup and, what he was able to add later on. And I really like a lot of those makeup effects, but I think just having it very simplistic and they look kind of normal, but they're just off and they're just like eating like what looks like raw flesh and, stuff like that. I just think it's very off-putting the way it is. And I think the black and white cinematography adds to that. And just knowing that it's like one of the first movies to do something like this is just so cool. To just think about how much it influenced. I love one of my favorite shots is towards the end when you get Johnny comes back. Like, he dies like in the very beginning of the movie, but towards the end, after you've gone through a lot of shit, they start coming in, and then you just see Johnny, and he puts his hand on the frame, and attacks Barbara. And I really love that moment. It's just like a lot of these shots just like feel so iconic, and like the little girl Karen, I think her name is, kills her family. You got the whole debate between the asshole guy in the cellar and like our main protagonist. And then you got a lot of like commentary about like race relations and stuff that they're doing. And it's just a very, very simple movie, but it's one that you're just like, thank God it exists. And like, it's just, I don't know, it's just so cool just to know that like nothing really like it happened before it. And then this one happened. And then you're just like, wow, this is a very special movie. And I didn't love watching it in the very beginning. I was like, I know this is iconic, and I know this is something that I'm supposed to love, or, maybe not supposed to love, but, I know it's supposed to be a really great movie. And it took a little bit while for it to actually grow on me. But for now that when I watch it, I can actually see the brilliance of it. And that's why it's my number 2, because I love it so much. And I just think it's so iconic. And yeah, I love it. James, what do you think?
Yeah, this one stuck with me right off the bat after I've watched this. I watched this for the first time like years and years and years ago when it was on like Netflix. I don't even know how long ago it was, but a lot of this like kind of still like is in my head because of like how much I liked watching this the first time, like the whole just like survival concept, obviously because it's zombies, but I liked the practical effects, even like the late 60s, like still I thought held up pretty well. I thought the ending was kind of out of left field, but like after some more like kind of like reflection time on it, it seemed pretty fitting because like, I mean, he works so hard to, do what he can to save all the people in the house, and then the group of guys walks by and, ooh, there's one, bam, like, and that's what you get. But like it was like strikingly kind of fitting almost, and like kind of makes you think almost. So I really liked that aspect of it too. It was a really kind of like off the wall ending, but I think it worked really well. I think even like I said, the special effects. I mean, all these movies, it's obvious sausage links they're pulling out of their bodies, but it's done so well. It holds up even today. And this was one of the ones I will probably love watching, from here on. So it's number 3 on my list. I liked it a lot.
Absolutely. Austin.
Yeah, again, it's number 4 on my list, but not because it's, bad or anything like that. It's great. It's just the one I've seen the other top 3. I rewatched them kind of more than this one. But yeah, we over on Rankin, we did a influential horror movies episode. And of course, this was on the list, because it basically created an entire genre. And yeah, you're surprised when you go back to it, how much it holds up as far as the pacing of it. And, again, the concepts that they introduce, and yeah, how much movies have kind of ripped off this movie, you know, for better for worse, over the years. But yeah, it still works. The acting's really good. Dwayne Jones is a great leading man, and apparently, you know, if you know the behind the scenes, Romero didn't really intend to have it be like a commentary on race relations. He just thought Dwayne Jones was a really good actor and just cast him, and then it kind of ended up being that as one of those happy accidents of cinema, you know, that ends up working on a whole nother level when you watch the movie. But yeah, there's a great dynamic between all the characters. Yeah, very bleak ending, but you know, it was kind of ballsy again at the time for what it did. And yeah, I think it just still works. It's beautifully shot for a really low budget movie. I think the black and white photography, you know, is a positive in this aspect. It gives it a really creepy, atmospheric feel to it. Of like, it almost feels like there's always like fog, you know, in every scene, even though there's not, you know, even when they're inside, you know, just with the aspects of it, and it's really good. And yeah, you're surprised at how quickly it moves and all that, and still works. So yeah, Night of the Living Dead, aka the movie you'll see every low budget horror movie character watching on Halloween night in every movie, because it's free, and you know, you won't get, you know, you don't have to pay to put in your movie, and also the one that's the easiest to find on every single streaming service possible, because it's free. So you could literally put it right on the screen right now, Chad, and you would not get penalized for it at all. Yeah, you can stream it right next to us. But yeah, it still really works, and yeah, Romero really did something special with this one, and kind of found his voice for sure.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add like the credits at the very end, very creepy. Like it just shit happens. That ending happens, and then it's just like the credits, and then you just see like things happening while the credits are going, and it's just like just a really creepy movie. And I think because it feels so real, it definitely holds up, and is very scary to watch even today. Yeah, so we're on to the original Dawn of the Dead now.
We actually should go in our number ones.
All right, let's go on our number ones. James, what is your number one?
The original Dawn of the Dead.
All right, Austin.
My number one is George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead.
Nice. Kerri.
Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, not Dawn of the Dead, but Shaun of the Dead is also my number one.
So we should talk about Shaun of the Dead first, and then
okay.
Dawn of the Dead.
Perfect. Let me start with Shaun of the Dead, since it's one of my favorite movies. Yeah, this one Kerri actually bought me last Christmas, and I finally read it. The You've Got Blood on You book that like basically chronicles the, I don't want to say like troubled, but I guess it was kind of troubled production, but it was just basically like a small group of filmmakers, you know, coming from their TV show Spaced to make a film. They did a show episode on Spaced of Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, I think, fighting zombies. I haven't actually seen that episode. But they were like, you know, let's make this into a movie. You know, they wrote the script. It's such a perfect, I think, screenplay. And then just knowing how Edgar Wright is, like Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg basically bonded over their love of the original Dawn of the Dead. That they loved that movie so much that they wanted to pay homage to it. So it's kind of like a parody in a way, but it's really, you know, that mostly seems like it's slapstick and stuff, but it's really not. It's like also a legitimate horror movie, but it happens to be very funny. But it has a lot of very scary, harrowing moments and a lot of deep emotional moments as well. But just knowing like how Edgar Wright's style was just so interesting that, you know, he was like, he had the storyboard in his head and he shot it exactly how he had it in his head with the storyboard, so much that like a lot of people around the set were getting annoyed, and they were like, why do you need close-ups of every single person? But I think it's because every like shot that he did was perfectly realized in his head. And no, they weren't able to get every single shot that he wanted, but I feel like if you're going to go and look at a perfect horror comedy, a perfect horror movie, perfect comedy, Shaun of the Dead is it. I think it hits on every single level of all that. That's why it's one of my favorite movies, period. But just like favorite movie of all of those categories. I'm not saying it's better than the things that it came before it. I'm putting it, in my opinion, up there with the classics. Not saying it's above, but it's my favorite, so I put it slightly above. And I'm like, look, Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg would disagree with me. They would put Dawn of the Dead higher than their own movie. And I was like, should I? And then I was like, no, I got to go with my heart. I got to go with the one I love so much. It's one that I could just rewatch all the time, even more than these other ones that are kind of like newly found movies that I love. A lot of the George Romero film. But Shaun of the Dead is one that I just think is so fun. You know, you got the jukebox sequence that's kind of brought back a love for Queen. You know, you just got so much fun stuff in this. You know, a lot of great. You know, Bill Nighy, I don't think was really that established before this, so that kind of did a lot for his career, did a lot for Simon Pegg and Nick Frost's career. They kind of blew up after this, especially Simon Pegg. You know, and then Edgar Wright is kind of a prestige filmmaker nowadays. Like, people are waiting, what's the next Edgar Wright film going to be? I'm just so excited because he is just that good of a director. And, you know, I don't know. I could go on and do my whole show of just Shaun of the Dead talking about my love for it. Let's move on. It's my number one, and it's probably going to stay there forever. James.
Yeah, I mean, this overall is a fantastic film. I love watching this every time it comes on the TV or I scroll by it. If I have an hour and 40 minutes, this is one that's easy to watch. I would plug this as another very rewatchable movie of this list, along with the Dawn of the Dead remake. But it blends the zombie horror aspect real well with the comedy. It gets the zombies right. I think there's a little callback to the original Night of the Living Dead when he's walking through the streets after like the guys turn into zombies. There's one has the radio on, and there's a small radio broadcast that they say like a broken down satellite is like came down through the atmosphere overnight, and that's also, if I recall correctly, the reason they thought the people were turned into zombies. In the original one, is there was this radiation from a broken up satellite coming through the atmosphere, I guess, over Pennsylvania in the original. But I thought that was kind of a cool callback. And you really had to be listening to pick it up. It's like 2 or 3 seconds on the screen, but I like that bit of it enough. It's a great movie. I love watching it, but it's not better than the original Dawn of the Dead. Sorry, but yeah,
I disagree. But I'm also going to add in there, like, this is another one that if you do rewatch Shaun of the Dead, you'll find like so much more that's in there that you didn't notice, and like a lot of horror callbacks and stuff like that because of Edgar Wright's deep knowledge of the genre and his love for it and stuff. So yeah,
you do get a pretty good scene. The one guy gets his stomach torn open, a la Day of the Dead. All the reaching in the window, they're ripping it. That part was really good too.
And that part, because I watched this when I was a child, when I was 14, because Shaun of the Dead, I was still a child. That scared the shit out of me. And that was like, because this was before I was like into horror, really. And that part, I was like, what did I just watch? I hadn't seen Day of the Dead or anything like that at that point. So yeah, it's probably a lot of nostalgic bias in there as well for me, but it is what it is. Austin, what do you think?
No, yeah, it's my number 5, and again, I want to make it perfectly clear to Chad. Like, it's not that I don't like this movie or don't think it's a good movie. I just don't go as gaga for it as like everybody else in this community seems to go for. I think it's like the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like, I just think they're like, especially in this ranking, a couple movies that I think are significantly better or just more rewatchable to me. I like Hot Fuzz. I just think he kind of perfected that formula in Hot Fuzz. If I'm going for something with some horror or sci-fi elements, I go to The World's End because I'm a Body Snatchers guy, so I go to that movie a little bit more because and that movie's has really jumped up in my rankings for me. And if I go to horror comedy, I just go to Zombieland a little bit more than Shaun of the Dead. It's just a little more up my alley. But again, I still think it's a really solid movie. There's some really fun sequences. All the chemistry between all the characters is great. The writing is still good. I love that it opens with the music from Dawn of the Dead over the Universal logo. That's always great, and puts me in the right mood for it. And I can tell he loves Romero movies. He's doing his love letter to them, and so I appreciate that. It's just I don't go back to it as much as everybody else seems to go back to it. I've watched Hot Fuzz like 100 times. I watched this one probably 8 or 9 times, something like that. It's just not one of my go-tos personally, but I totally get why people like really dig it. Again, I'm not saying it's bad. I think it's a very good movie, and I like Edgar Wright. I just don't go as crazy for it as everybody else does. That's all.
Yeah, definitely no worries. But yeah, that Cornetto trilogy is freaking.
Cornetto trilogy is hot. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, if we're talking about trilogies of like great movies, like it's up there. You know what I mean? It's really good. Yeah, for sure.
Kerri, what do you think about Shaun of the Dead? It's your number one, right?
Yeah, this is also my number one. Yeah, it's just at this point, like, I don't know. I guess I've just become most like a horror comedy is like my favorite subgenre at this point of horror. And this is the only one of these that is really solidly a horror comedy. And not to say I love the original trilogy so much. Just if you're to ask me what's my favorite zombie movie, it's going to be Shaun of the Dead. It was probably the first. I think it was actually, I watched this like right after the Dawn of the Dead remake, but it was the first zombie movie. One of the first zombie movies I ever watched. It's just kind of like been in my life since it first came out. And I constantly just go back to this one. I know since Chad's such a big fan of it too, we both just constantly go back to it. And again, this is another one it's just like one of the best comfort movies. So yeah.
And just Kerri, great words. And just to piggyback off something you said, where you were talking about it being like one of the first zombie movies you saw, it's because they made it because they were like, they haven't made zombie movies in a long time. We can bring this back, kind of a deal. And that was the plan. And then they got worried when they heard that 28 Days Later was coming out, and they were like, oh no. And then they saw it or something, and they were like, "Oh, never mind. We're not worried. That's fast zombies. This is a completely different thing." So, it brought back like the slow zombie and stuff, and I really appreciate that as well. All right, so now we can get on to the original Dawn of the Dead discussion. And who wants to start?
James.
I'll go.
James,
I'll start. Sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is clearly hands down the best of all these. I enjoy watching this from start to finish every time. It's a good bit longer than most of these other movies, which isn't, in this case, definitely a bad thing for just how much, like, I think character development there is in here. I forget the name of the guy, but he's the first one he tries to pick up a gun and he helps kill a zombie with the other guy behind the zombie, but the guy's pissed at him because he's like, "How I'm gonna point my gun at you and see if you like it." Like, it's not as easy as just picking up.
He's like racist and stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah, a bit of that too, yeah, for sure. But like, there's that you come to like him in the end because he improves on himself so much. He works with the team. He turns in the end, of course, but like, there's great development there. Like, I really kind of liked the bit with the helicopter getting to leave. Like, you want the guy to come through the ceiling and just help out, get the last of it done. Like, just do your job, like that kind of thing. I love the way that they work together to set up like their defenses in the mall. Like, I know Austin mentioned earlier, it's a smaller group of people, not a huge big one. So there's just so much more like you can focus on. Even like the smaller side stuff, they have enough time to like cook the couple dinner the one night. They just do a bunch of small things, and all of it goes to hell like it should when the biker gang shows up and they start shooting the zombies and they try to shoot the bikers, and everything just kind of goes to hell and breaks loose. I like kind of the slow pacing in the beginning where they're trying to kind of figure out like what exactly is going on and like how they're gonna like work together to like save themselves as long as they can. I like how they go into like barricading the mall with like the truck scenes are really good. I like how, I forget the name, of course, but the one actor's in the trucks all like hopped up and yelling and whooping and like trying to have a good time. And the guy's like, no, we gotta focus on this, but we can't like mess this up. We gotta, keep our focus. And the one guy gets bit in the end, of course. But I think there's so much like emotion between the characters. There's so much development. There's great like arcs between them all. I absolutely love this movie. It's the best one on this list.
Hell yeah, Austin.
This movie fucking rules. I just love this movie so much. It's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's in my top 10. And I've been a big fan of this ever since I first picked up this Divimax DVD that's now really hard to find. But I ended up picking up years ago at like a movie stop, and I'm glad I did because it's kind of notorious. Oh no, I've got my 4K set. Oh yeah. Oh, I had two of them. We gave one away because I had two because of a shipping error. I actually had a second copy, but we gave that away over on the Movie Hero Network as a prize. So, but yeah, I have it. It's great. I wish this movie was more like easier to find than what it is. There's a distribution issue with a guy in Germany that like owns part of the rights to it, and he doesn't want to like give it up for distribution rights, although it's easy to find. You can watch it on YouTube and stuff. It's not that hard to actually find. And it was in theaters twice this past year. The Dawn of Dead 3D, and then my Regal Theater also just showed it in 2D for like a week leading up to Halloween. It was pretty awesome. So it's actually, because there's a theatrical version that they, for some reason, rights issue they can show in theaters. It's really weird. Like the whole thing is complicated. But yeah, I'm glad this movie's coming around and more people are seeing it because it was kind of notoriously hard to find for a while. But I just think this movie's pretty damn fun from start to finish. I love 70s movies. I'm a big 70s guy, and I think this is just about the most charming 70s movies you can get. It's kind of the best of that. The wacky colors are fun. The music is so like goofy and entertaining. With all the stuff, the way they incorporate the mall music is really fun. But yeah, I love that it starts out chaotic because you're just jumping into this world of these people and what's going on in this apartment building. But then the movie then slowly locks in on these four characters, and we really get to know them, really get to follow them in their plight. And the movie almost plays out like a video game. It's very realistic. It's like, okay, now that we're here, what do we do? Okay, well, let's go around. Let's barricade all the doors. Let's arm ourselves up at the gun store in the mall, which definitely doesn't exist anymore. But it's fun. I like seeing all the 70s aesthetics, all the different products and whatnot, all the stores. But yeah, then it's like, well, then let's get rid of them. Okay, well, now we got to put them in a freezer because we don't want a mistake, and we got to clean up all the bad ones. Now we got to barricade the doors of the trucks. Like, it's just one thing after another. It's like a very realistic movie of like, what would we do in a situation? It doesn't have world-ending stakes. It's just following these characters and what they would do to live and survive. And then they set up their little, almost like a house, up in that upper storage room. Like we got furniture. By the end, we got furniture and couches and kitchenware and all kinds of stuff, and it's great. And you really do feel for them when they start to get picked off one by one. When Roger gets bit, obviously being a little over enthusiastic, but his scene where he tells him, I'm going to try not to come back. Like it's devastating. It's really tough, for him. And when Flyboy gets it in the elevator, that really sucks. Because he was kind of the asshole, but you kind of come around to him by the end of the movie. It's just, I really like just really locking in on these characters and just seeing them live for 2 hours in this mall. I just think it's a lot more entertaining than what you think it would be. I understand it's longer than some of these other ones, but I think it's fun that we just get to kind of be with these characters and hang out at this mall with them and just see them doing their tasks and stuff. I mean, even just the little sequences where they're trying to entertain themselves, they're playing in the arcade and just eating the food and trying on stuff. Again, I just like being with these characters in the situation, and it's great. And even the biker chaos at the end is fun because you get that kill count up a little bit. You get to see some of them get ripped to pieces, and it's a lot of fun. This movie just rules. I've rewatched it. I picked up this thing, watched it in 4K. My roommate wanted to watch it. We watched it like a week later. I watched it again. Still had just as much fun. I saw it in the theater a couple weeks later, when they did the 3D thing. So I've seen this movie 4 times this year, just through circumstances, and it never fails to entertain me. I just think this movie's a masterpiece of 70s horror, especially. So yeah, and just kind of a masterpiece of the genre.
Yeah, and I just wanted to touch on real quick before we get to Kerri, because you brought up Flyboy. That actor I thought was freaking amazing. Like you talked about, I talked about Bub. That actor was great. But a Flyboy, after he turns and he's going, I'm like, how is he not breaking his ankle right now the way he's walking?
Oh, he's got his leg completely turned sideways when he's walking around. Yeah, he's really messed up. Yeah, it's really good. And yeah, I mean, if the worst complaint I hear from people when they see this is it's weird that some of them have blue faces or gray faces or whatever with the makeup. But if I think that adds to the charm of it, honestly. And you got some very recognizable ones. The guy who wears kind of the the Hindu like monk outfit kind of stuff. That actor used to go to conventions. He still would wear his stuff like every time he went to a convention. And they make some of those that you recognize kind of throughout the movie, and they're fun. So it's just a good time, man. I think this is great, and I think everybody's great in it. Ken Faree's the man. He's awesome. I've met him a couple times.
Ken Faree, first saw him as Roger Blackmore and Keenan and Kel.
Yeah, he's Keenan and Kel's dad. I asked him about that actually when he came to Screenfest, and he was doing a convention. He's one of those guys that he goes to a convention kind of like Bruce Campbell. He doesn't even use a microphone because he's got a big booming voice, and he could just talk really loud. And I actually asked him about Keenan and Kel when it got to Q&A time, and just asked him if he would ever do like slapstick comedy again, or what his experiences was getting on that show. And she's like, oh man, every week I was getting pies down my pants and getting juice thrown on me and just getting messed up every time. But and then he does this whole thing and he goes, and I loved it. I do it all over again. It was so much fun.
It does sound like a fun experience with Keenan and Kel. Yep, Kerri, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, amazing movie. Obviously, this one is actually, I think this was the second time we watched this.
Yes.
In preparation for this, and I previously in my ranking of the original George Romero trilogy, this had been last. Not that I didn't love it, but just it was my least beloved of the trilogy. And it definitely moved up to second in this rewatch. I don't know if anything will ever top Night of the Living Dead at this point for me, but the pacing of this movie is fantastic. Like, it's hard to say more than what you guys have already said about this movie. I mean, the special effects, just phenomenal. I love how deeply we get into each of these characters, and it just kind of becomes a story about them. I love these like kind of slow scenes in the mall, and they're just trying to live their lives, and it's obviously not normal, but they're trying to just go day by day. I love the ending of this movie. It's still a little bit hopeful. Like, this is one that it's not too intense. Like, there's definitely intense moments. There's sad moments, like when Flyboy when Flyboy dies, when the other guy, I forget his name, dies. There's sadder moments, but overall I think this movie ends with like kind of a spirit of like the humans will survive, maybe.
Hopefulness, yeah.
Yeah, hopefulness, overall it, and just the mall, like the endings, the whole ending sequence in the third act where the bikers are just taking over the mall and the zombies are going loose and they eventually overtake the bikers. It's just fantastic. And you kind of get all the like the goriness without kind of as much of the heartbreak as you would if the bikers were kind of like.
Well, because most of the gory kills are of these guys you don't like anyway, so you're like kind of cheering out. You're like, rip his arm off. Yeah, go get that guy. Get him. You're like, how dare you interrupt this nice life these people were having in this mall?
Exactly.
It's great.
Yeah, and I mean it gets whimsical at some parts with like the pies and stuff like that. It's just like, a movie that like doesn't take itself too seriously, but it also feels like a movie that was kind of like put together in the edit, which is not always a bad thing. I mean, Apocalypse Now was done that way, and that's considered one of the greatest movies ever. Just like this one is and should be, by people more than just horror fans, because I do think it's an incredible movie. It is one that Kerri and I saw. We did watch the YouTube cut. I don't know. I can't speak for Kerri, but I wasn't vibing with it the first time that I watched it. I was like, oh, okay. Because I was like, this is Dawn of the Dead. This is the thing that Edgar Wright saw, loved, and made Shaun of the Dead because of it. And I was like, I don't know. I don't think it really holds up that well. And then watching it recently after getting the 4K and just really sitting down and going, okay, let's give it another chance. we freaking loved it. And we were just
I'm telling you, it's a movie that I think I've had similar experiences with what people I've recommended this to. They're like, I kind of liked it, but like you have it as like one of your favorite movies. But then it creeps up on you. You just can't stop thinking about it, and like it gets into your brain, and you're just like, you know what, like. Oh, let me give this another shot. And then you watch it again, you watch it again, you watch it again, and it becomes like
really the big thing that I think Austin kind of, because when Austin was like talking about the movie, it made me just want to rewatch the movie again because I was like, you know what? You just love living with these characters in the mall, in the situations they're in. Like Kerri was talking about with just like the slowness of it. But that's kind of like, I feel like how it would feel like if you were in a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Like it's not all like, oh shit, oh, it's coming at me all the time. It would be like, okay, now we
hold up in a safe place, and now we just gotta live, and see what happens. And that's kind of what it is. It's not an action-packed like. I mean, there are moments where they're going around and strategizing, shooting or whatever, but it's not like an action movie, where it's like nonstop. We're hunting zombies down, and it's just like we're just doing what we got to do to live a semi-normal life. Yeah, it's interesting.
And I think that's what's really cool about it. I think it works as just a sequel. I think it works as its own thing. All the character. I like I do feel very sad for Flyboy. Like I wanted to see him make it, and he doesn't. But then I praise the actor's zombie performance, which is incredible. I love seeing Roger Rockmore in this movie because I grew up with Keenan and Kel. So seeing him and Ken Faree and a lot of these is really cool. And then, I like the very end where he almost decides not to go up the ladder, the stairs or whatever, the ladder, I think it is, up to the roof, to the plane. And she's waiting on him. And you're like, is he going to make it? And oh, no, he's not. He's trapped. And then he's like, no, fuck this. I'm not trapped. Love how that ends because they could have gone with another ending and him dying. And I was like, no, I think it's fun that he decides not to give up hope and escapes with her. And she had already learned how to fly the helicopter. And the one thing that Austin also said that made me realize another reason why I love this movie is because it's one of those where they put everything in place to make sure it makes sense. It's like, it feels like Halloween 1978 or Die Hard or something like that, where you're like, the screenplay is incredible. And like just everything that they put in place, it makes sense. And they're doing this because of this. And, it's one of those where they're not like jumping through hurdles to get to another plot point or something like that. And instead it just works. So, I do think it is a perfect movie. Honestly, this might be my number 2. It's one of those where these 3 jump around a lot for me. But my personal thing with Shaun of the Dead, I love it so much. But James, did you talk about Shaun of the Dead?
Yeah, you talked about it first.
We're done. We're done, guys. So we've talked about all these. We've revealed our rankings, and I believe Kerri may have our combined ranking.
I do. Okay. Starting at the bottom. Universally the last movie on this list, Survival of the Dead. That's at number 10. Then at number 9, we have Diary of the Dead. At number 8, Army of the Dead. At number 7, Land of the Dead. At number 6, the Night of the Living Dead remake. At number 5, the Dawn of the Dead remake. At number 4, Day of the Dead. At number 3, Night of the Living Dead. At number 2, Shaun of the Dead. Okay. And at number 1, Dawn of the Dead.
Nice. I almost was like, wait, is this going to be my exact ranking? And I think it is, except for I have the number 1 and 2.
Right.
Mine was after number 6.
Awesome.
That's a pretty great, solid combined ranking. I think we all at least love to a certain part, like the top half.
Oh yeah, no. I like the top half of these movies a lot. Like, I don't have any. Yeah. It's just to a degree that I've rewatched or just have a heart for, certain ones in the series. Yeah,
same. And they can jump around a lot too. So thank you guys so much. This was fun. We had this idea, and I was like, well, it would be fun if we had like these 10 movies and with this work. And I think it made a great ranking. We had a really good time discussing these. And a lot of them I kind of want to just watch again right now. Some of them not so much. So it's one of those. Anybody got any last words?
Choke on it.
I know. Rest in peace, George Romero. I got to meet him at a convention back in 2013. A thing popped up on my Facebook recently, a memory of my picture with him, and yeah, he's a really sweet guy. I have a 8x10 signed by him, and I got a picture with him.
So
and
cool.
he was such a humble, like, sweet guy. He was just happy to be like known for anything, essentially. He's just like, hey, I'm glad it all worked. He's like, even he's like, yeah, not all my movies worked out the way I wanted, but like I left an impact on the industry and did my thing. And like, and people especially when they meet him were like, oh, he's just such a sweetheart. He just wants to make movies.
Yeah.
That's why, like, it's like I don't love like Survival and Diary, but like I love the guy behind it. So like it's hard to like really hate the movies.
Yeah.
You can tell he's still just like making movies, up until the end. So he was a really sweet guy, and he definitely left an impact on the horror community because obviously he created a genre that has spawned
100%.
thousands of movies at this point. I mean, if you look up like zombie movies, I mean, it's literally like there's thousands of zombie movies. It's insane. So yeah.
Yeah, but also real quick, I kind of forget to do this a lot of the times. But Austin, you want to plug anything real quick?
Yeah, no. Mostly you can find me over on the Movie Hero Network with myself and Jordan Anderson, kind of hosting and co-hosting everything. We got all kinds of different shows over there. We got Tearjerker Fights, Tournament Fights, a podcast about movies, Podcast League Now, Wheel of Movies, Lonely Marks Wrestling Podcast. So a little something for everybody, multiple times a week. So please, we'd love to earn your subscription over there on the Movie Hero Network. Great.
Hell yeah, it's definitely a fun channel. I've been on it. Kerri's been on it. It's a fun time. I mean, I'll just plug my stuff real quick because I should. You can find also me and Kerri and sometimes Austin over on the Nerd Entertainment Network doing Welcome to Primetime. We'll get back into doing brackets and stuff pretty soon, but probably next year in January.
We got to do that 80s bracket. That one's going to be fun.
Yeah, we're going to start doing some more classic stuff. So pretty great. But yeah, we mostly talk horror over there. We rank Buffy some episodes sometimes and just do a lot of like reviews and talk about horror. Yes, Kerri?
Nothing.
Okay. And then you can go over and check out. I thought she had something to say.
I'm sorry.
Check out the Dill Pickle Movie Network. Where we do a show called Picture This, where we watch every Best Picture nominee known to man, and we're doing next month. We did 1985 in November. In December, we're doing 1960 for The Apartment Christmas movie. Why not? And this is my channel. Check out some of the other stuff that's on here. Check out some of the other You Rankin' With Me episodes if you haven't seen them. There's a lot of really great stuff out there, including we did an Edgar Wright ranking. That might have been our first one, or is it our second?
Was that first or was Denis first?
I think Edgar was first,
okay.
And we were trying to figure out the kinks of the show.
Okay.
And the next time he comes out with one, we'll probably do a little bit of a reevaluation and see what's up. But check out the other episodes of this show on this channel, and then check out other shows on the channel. I'm trying to get that Good Burger 2 reaction that I did with Tato up, but I'm having trouble with the copyright stuff. We'll get it figured out. And then Kerri and I have been doing reviews on here and stuff like that. So just check out all that stuff. Like and subscribe, please, so you can see more videos when they come out. We're going to try to get these to come out in quicker succession. But thank you everybody for watching. Thanks for everybody who was on the show. I had a really great time ranking the stuff. And every time.
Oh my God.
Are you ranking with me?
Choke on it.
Choke on it.
Choke on it.